you for joining us for this content collaboration between Property Tribes and leasehold expert Bernie Wales. And over the next short video series, we're going to be identifying some frequently asked questions about leasehold. And for the first instalment, Bernie, very simple question, but it's important to know, what is the difference between freehold and leasehold?
There is a world of difference, a really big difference, particularly for property investors. Freehold, in order to understand that, we've really got to go back to William the Conqueror, Doomsday Book and stuff like that. So he came along, took over England and claimed all of that land. It was owned by the king. And he then decided that all of his mates had been helpful to him, providing soldiers, etc. He would give them bits of land, a manor, and they became lords of the manor. And originally, they would pay a rent for that in terms of soldiers, etc., etc. But then eventually, lords of the manor became free of that rent to the king, and hence held the land freehold without strings, etc. And to this day, freehold is pretty free in terms of rules and regulations. Yes, we have got planning laws and local bylaws, grade 2 listings and things like that. But generally, if you own a building freehold, you can go and dig a hole in the garden or knock a hole in the wall or whatever. It's your property. Now, those landlords, those freeholders, decided that they could earn some money by renting out bits of their land to the peasants. And that may well have been in terms of a tithe, you may have heard that, where they rented out some land, they produced goods from that, whether it was sheep, cows, turnips or whatever, and they provided 10% of that to the landlord as a rent. But as time went on, you got into a situation where, you know, we don't all grow turnips, and I'm no good with sheep. So it's better if I can pay money for renting a piece of land or renting a building. And you then got into the landlords getting their legal boffins, solicitors we would call them today, to draw up agreements, leases, so that these peasants could rent the land or rent the building. And over time, lawyers being lawyers, they've crossed the T's, dotted the I's, added another complicated word, and you end up with 50-page documents that say, yes, you can rent this building from me. And that's where leasehold comes in. And there's a whole, in addition to laws to do with that, landlord and tenant law, that you've also got to have an eye open for, in addition to the wording of the lease. There's also case law. So where landlords and tenants and leaseholders have disagreed over the years, they've gone to the judges have decided upon the question, and then you have got that answer which becomes part of the law, case law. So the whole thing is a very, very complicated, and I don't profess to know all of it. I know the common bits that everybody bumps into every day, but there are specialist lawyers out there that deal with the minutiae of these sorts of things. But you come down to the simple answer to your question is freehold is pretty free of rules. Leasehold has got oodles of rules, and you've got to know them. And the starting point for that is read the lease. That is the rule book for your particular flat, your particular building in which the flat sits, and maybe the estate that block sits in. So you've got to read the lease. If you're buying a flat with leasehold, read the lease, because that's what you're buying. You're not buying the flat, you're buying the piece of paper.
Very good advice. Typically, Bernie, freehold is houses, leasehold is flats and apartments, but you can get the odd leasehold house as well.
You can get leasehold houses. There's generally a reason for that these days. It's preferred to sell freehold. It's much less onerous to sell a freehold house. If you're selling a leasehold house, you get all sorts of questions, particularly after the Taylor Wimpey and all of those onerous ground rent troubles with leasehold houses in recent years. but there may be reasons for it. It may be on an estate where you cannot have a freehold. It may be that that estate is in fact a leasehold. It may be on a 1,000-year lease from whoever that landlord is, Prince Charles or the Queen or whoever it might be, and therefore whatever happens on there must be smaller leases after that. There may be reasons like that. Then it may be also that you could buy a leasehold house, but there is still a whole load of charges that go with it, what they call rent charges, a bit like service charge in a flat. You can get rent charge for a house to do with communal areas. So where you have an estate, you may have a spine road, you may have a kiddies playing area, communal grass or whatever. And all of that is paid for by all the house owners and flat owners on the estate. So yes, whatever you're buying, read the paperwork, definitely read the paperwork, whether it's freehold or leasehold. There are rules out there and you don't want to fall foul of them.
Well, you touched there briefly on ground rents and service charges, and we're going to cover that in another video. And one of the main purposes of the videos that we're collaborating on with Bernie is to encourage people to read the lease. Join us for the next one.